more connected now more than ever, yet nearly 50% of Americans surveyed reported feeling lonely. Our ancestors didn't have a phone in their hands. They couldn't speed dial their friends or family through their Apple Watches, and definitely couldn't keep up with their favorite online personalities with just a couple clicks via Instagram or TikTok. So could it be that having too much access and comfort is actually making things worse for us? That's what Michael Easter set out to determine in his book, The Comfort Crisis. Lucky for you, we read it so you don't have to. And today, you'll get the full summary along with the 5 habits we all need to break, because it's not just about reading, but putting it into action. There are 5 main things we are uncomfortable with in modern society: boredom, solitude, hunger, physical activity, and death. And it's not that we are going through rough times and that's the reason why it's uncomfortable. Actually, the other way around. We are so comfortable and so stable with our lives that these 5 things have gotten out of hand throughout the years, to the point where they are the root cause of the main problems like depression, anxiety, obesity, and feeling unsatisfied. When was the last time you felt bored? Or actually, the question should be, allowed yourself to feel bored. If we have 1 minute of extra space, our fingers are automatically already pulling up our favorite app to see what's going on. We can't go on a drive without listening to the latest podcast or our favorite playlist. And it's not just you, it's all of us. That's why Michael, the author of the book, decided to go on a trip alone to the Alaskan wilderness. This sensation of never feeling alone, yet experiencing loneliness, and never feeling bored, yet filling the time with passive scrolling, has a lot to do with the fact that we are uncomfortable in empty spaces by ourselves. Ironically, the only way to get past being lonely is being capable and happy enjoying time spent by yourself. Doing nothing is actually good for our brains. Studies have shown that the Japanese concept of nature bathing has a correlation with decreased levels of burnout, stress, and depression. What if you created the routine of being out in nature without distractions for 20 minutes 3 times a week? I know I feel like a completely different person even after a couple minutes sitting out in nature. Now imagine that being a habit. That feeling is also pretty similar to the sensation after a good workout. While Michael was in the wild, he shared the story of how hunting wasn't the most difficult thing he had to do, but rather the uphill trek carrying over 100 pounds on his back. That sounds wild, carrying over 100 pounds while being outdoors in the freezing cold in Alaska. And we complain about our 30-minute workout classes in AC temperature cooled rooms while we listen to good music and then have access to cold, refreshing water. It's pretty clear that we've gotten way too comfortable. We often underestimate what our bodies are capable of. Our ancestors walked miles and miles carrying a heavy weight, and often under the hot sun without a drop of water nearby. And this doesn't mean that you need to book a trip to the desert to walk barefoot, but it should make you question, when was the last time you pushed your body outside of its limits? Inside the book Can't Hurt Me, which is up on this channel, we learned about the 40% rule, which shows us that oftentimes physical fatigue isn't real, yet produced by our brains, when in reality our body still has 60% more to give. It's no wonder Michael and countless others have set out to complete what's called a misogi. A misogi is a Japanese term for a unique and challenging practice of purification, yet it's now also used to describe a challenge you do 1 time a year that impacts the other 364 days. A misogi challenge pushes you outside your comfort zone, and ideally is something that if you embarked on today, you wouldn't be able to complete without the previous training or conditioning. And maybe this seems daunting and scary at first, but setting a big goal, like preparing for a marathon, allows you to train and get better day by day while doing a physical activity outside of what you thought was once possible. There are many things we are realizing from this book. We've allowed ourselves to get comfortable with it, and it doesn't stop just there, because now we jump into our habits around food. We need to learn to differentiate between the signals of cravings and real hunger, and understand that sometimes feeling hungry is okay. Throughout the years, we've seen how new diets come and go, and it's hard to keep up with which one is trendy now. But why is it that even with the surplus of diets, only 3% of people who lose weight are able to keep it off? Could it be that we're eating to satisfy other emotions and not just to nourish the body? The book Outlive covers how food and our eating habits impact the process of aging, but it's also good to realize that maybe we've gotten too comfortable with constantly snacking and feeding our sweet cravings without even questioning them. On the opposite hand, the final fifth habit in the book talks about death. The author writes that thinking about death and impermanence can make us happier and help us live more meaningful lives. This came about after his trip to the Bhutan, where death is celebrated and where pyramids are built out of ashes in honor of the deceased. Seeing the contrast from being afraid of death led him to realize that reflecting on mortality can make you more grateful, and that true happiness comes from changing your perspective to live in the present. If you have someone in mind who needs to hear this, send them this link. And if this episode left you hungry to know more, the book link is down below in the description.